There. Amina pointed to a door at the far end of the room. It looked like it might lead to an office or storage area. They sprinted toward it, their hearts pounding louder with each step. Just as they reached the door, a loud crash echoed behind them, followed by angry shouts. Benga's men were closing in. Amina yanked the door open, and they stumbled into a small room filled with files and old furniture. She quickly scanned the room for anything that might help them. "Look," Tola exclaimed, pointing to a metal filing cabinet against the wall. Maybe he kept it in there. With urgency, they rushed over and yanked open the drawers. Papers spilled out, revealing a jumble of documents, but Amina couldn't find anything that resembled what Nana had mentioned. "Keep looking," she urged, her heart racing. Time was running out, and the sounds of footsteps were getting closer. Just then, Amina spotted a folder tucked in the back corner. She pulled it out and opened it, her breath catching as she read the words, Operation Shadow, across the top. "This has to be it," she said, flipping through the documents. There were contracts, financial statements, and names of people involved in Benga's operations. "We have to take this," Tola said, glancing nervously at the door. But just as they began to gather the papers, the door burst open, and the two men from earlier stood there, fury in their eyes. "Going somewhere," one of them sneered. Amina felt a rush of fear but quickly steeled herself. "We have to get out of here," she yelled, grabbing Tola's hand and pulling her toward the window. "Wait," Tola shouted, but Amina was already climbing through the opening. They landed on the ground outside, rolling to avoid injury. "Run!" Amina shouted, leading the way as they sprinted across the yard. Behind them, the men shouted and chased after them, their footsteps pounding against the ground. "Where do we go now?" Tola gasped, glancing back to see how close they were. "There's a alleyway. Over there." Amina pointed to a narrow gap between two buildings. They darted into the alley, ducking behind a dumpster to catch their breath. "Did we lose them?" Tola asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Think so. But we can't stay here for long," Amina replied, her heart racing. "We need to find somewhere safe and figure out our next move." They waited in silence, listening to the distant sounds of the bustling city, the panic slowly subsiding. "We have the evidence," Tola said, her voice shaking with relief. "But what do we do now?" "We need to get this to the police," Amina said, determination filling her voice. "They can help us take down Benga once and for all." With a plan in place, they carefully made their way back to the main street, staying low and out of sight. The city felt different now, each shadow a potential threat. But Amina was fueled by the urgency of their mission. Just as they reached the main road, Amina's phone buzzed in her pocket. It was Mof. "Mina, where are you? I've been trying to reach you." "Are you safe?" he asked, worry lacing his voice. "I'm okay, Mof. We found the evidence, but Benga's men are on our tail." "We need to get to the police now," she replied, glancing around nervously. "I'll meet you at the old police station on the outskirts of town. It's less likely that they'll have eyes there," Mof suggested. "Okay, we'll be there soon," Amina said, her heart racing. As they hurried through the streets, Amina felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had the evidence that could expose Benga and avenge Nana's death. But the danger was far from over, and Amina knew they had to remain vigilant. Arriving at the old police station, they found Mof waiting outside, his expression a mix of relief and anxiety. "Thank God you're okay," he said, his eyes scanning the street. "We need to get inside and share what we found," Amina urged. Once inside, they were met by a weary officer who raised an eyebrow at their frantic demeanor. "What's going on?" the officer asked, folding his arms. Amina took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "We have evidence of a criminal operation run by a man named Benga. He's dangerous, and he's been involved in my fiancé's death." The officer hesitated, his gaze shifting between the three of them. "Do you have proof?" Amina pulled out the folder, her hands trembling as she placed it on the desk. "This is everything we found. It connects Benga to multiple crimes. Please, you have to help us." The officer looked skeptical but opened the folder, glancing through the documents. His expression changed as he realized the gravity of the situation. "Stay right here. I need to get my superior," he said, disappearing into the back office. As they waited, Amina's anxiety mounted. Would they take her seriously? Would Benga find them before they could expose him? After what felt like an eternity, the officer returned with a stern-looking man in a suit. "I'm Inspector Olayinka. I hear you have some important information," he said, eyeing the folder. "Yes, Inspector. This evidence ties Benga to multiple criminal activities, and we believe he was involved in my fiancé's death," Amina said, her voice unwavering. Olayinka nodded, flipping through the pages. "We've been tracking him for a while, but we haven't had enough evidence to make a move. This changes everything." Relief washed over Amina, but she knew the fight wasn't over. Benga would come after them once he realized what was happening. "We need protection," she urged. "I can assign some officers to keep an eye on you, but you must stay alert." "Benga is ruthless," Olayinka replied, looking serious. Amina nodded, understanding the stakes. "We'll do whatever it takes." As they left the station, Mof placed a reassuring hand on Amina's shoulder. "We're one step closer, Amina. But we have to stay vigilant. Benga will come for us." Amina felt a sense of determination settle in her chest. They would not back down. They would fight for Nana and for their own safety. But as they made their way home, Amina couldn't shake the feeling of dread that lingered in the air. Benga was still out there, and the danger was far from over. They reached her apartment, and Amina felt a momentary sense of relief. "We're safe for now," she said, locking the door behind them. But just as they settled in, a loud crash echoed from outside. Amina's heart dropped as she rushed to the window. Outside, a black SUV was parked in front of her building, and two men were climbing out. They looked familiar, and the realization hit her like a punch to the gut. "It's them," Amina gasped, fear coursing through her veins. "We need to get out of here. Now," Mof shouted, pulling her away from the window. They dashed to the back of the apartment, searching for a way to escape. Amina's mind raced. How had they found her? Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Benga's men were inside. "We can't stay here," Tola cried, panic rising in her voice. Amina looked around frantically. "There's a fire escape. We can use that." She pointed to a narrow window that led to a metal staircase outside. They scrambled toward it, but just as they reached the window, the door to the apartment burst open. "Stop right there," one of the men shouted, their eyes locking onto Amina and Tola. Without thinking, Amina squeezed through the window, followed closely by Tola and Mof. They climbed down the fire escape, hearts racing, adrenaline. As they reached the ground, Amina could hear the men shouting behind them, footsteps pounding on the metal stairs. They had to move fast. "Where do we go?" Tola asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Over there." Amina pointed to a narrow alleyway that led to the main street. They dashed toward it, the sounds of pursuit echoing in their ears. They sprinted through the alley, each step fueled by the instinct to survive. Amina's heart raced as they emerged onto the bustling street, the bright lights of the city surrounding them. "Where now?" Mof shouted, glancing back to see if they were being followed. "There." Amina pointed to a nearby bus stop. "We can catch a bus and blend in with the crowd." They hurried to the stop, panting heavily as they waited for the next bus. The world around them felt surreal, each face a blur as they desperately hoped to escape. As the bus pulled up, Amina felt a sense of urgency wash over her. They climbed aboard, and she chose a seat near the back, trying to remain calm. "Are we safe?" Tola asked, her voice trembling. "For now," Amina whispered, glancing out the window. The city was a maze, and she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was still lurking. The bus rolled through the streets, and Amina tried to focus on what to do next. They had the evidence, but they needed to ensure it reached the right hands. The stakes were higher than ever, and Benga would stop at nothing to silence them. As they rode in silence, Amina's mind raced with possibilities. They had to find a way to expose Benga without putting themselves in further danger. But as the bus turned a corner, she noticed something that made her heart drop. A black SUV was following them, weaving through traffic as it closed in on their location. "Look," Amina pointed, her voice filled with panic. "What do we do?" Mof shouted, his eyes wide. Amina's mind raced. "We need to get off the bus. Now." As the bus slowed to a stop, they all jumped to their feet, pushing their way toward the door. Amina felt a surge of adrenaline as they leaped off the bus just before it took off again. They landed on the sidewalk, quickly glancing around for a place to hide. Amina spotted a nearby convenience store and pulled Tola and Mof inside. "Stay low," Amina whispered as they crouched behind a shelf, trying to remain unseen. From their hiding spot, Amina watched as the SUV pulled up to the bus stop. The men got out, scanning the area with keen eyes. A sense of dread washed over her. "We have to find a way to lose them," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Do you think they saw us?" Tola whispered, her hands trembling. "I don't know," Amina replied, her heart racing. "But we can't wait here." They waited for a few tense moments, and Amina could hear the men talking outside, their voices growing louder as they searched for them. Suddenly, Mof had an idea. "We can sneak out the back. There's a door over there." Amina nodded, her heart pounding. "Let's go." They quietly made their way to the back of the store, and Mof pushed open the door, leading them into a narrow alley. Once outside, they took a moment to catch their breath. "What now?" Tola asked, looking around anxiously. "We need to find a place to lay low and come up with a plan," Amina said, scanning their surroundings. "Look," Mof pointed down the alley. "There's a diner. We can hide in there for a bit." They hurried toward the diner, slipping inside just as a group of customers walked out. Amina felt a glimmer of hope. Once inside, they found a booth in the back corner and sat down, trying to blend in. "I can't believe this is happening," Tola said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We'll get through this," Amina reassured her. "We just need to stay focused." After a few moments of silence, Mof spoke up. "What's the plan? We can't just sit here forever." Amina took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation. "We need to get to a safe place and contact the police again. But we have to be smart about it." As they discussed their options, Amina felt a sense of determination building within her. They had come too far to turn back now. They had to finish what they started, for Nana and for themselves. But as the minutes ticked by, Amina couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. She glanced out the window, her heart racing as she spotted the black SUV parked near the diner. The men were close, and they needed to act quickly. "We have to move," Amina said urgently, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're outside. Where do we go?" Tola asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Out the back," Mof suggested. "We can circle around and head down that side street." Amina nodded, adrenaline surging through her. "Let's go." They quietly made their way to the back of the diner, slipping out the door just as the men entered through the front. "Quick," Amina urged as they darted down the alley. They could hear the sound of their pursuers getting louder, their footsteps echoing behind them. "Which way?" Tola panted, glancing back. "Over there." Amina pointed to a side street that seemed less populated. They sprinted down the street, their hearts pounding in their chests. Amina felt the weight of the evidence in her bag, knowing that it was their only hope of bringing Benga to justice. "We need to find a safe place to hide," Mof said, glancing back to see if they were still being followed. Amina spotted a small park ahead, and she led the way toward it. They ducked behind a large bush, trying to catch their breath as they listened for any signs of their pursuers. "Do you think we lost them?" Tola asked, her voice shaking. "I hope so," Amina replied, her heart still racing. "But we can't let our guard down." After a few moments of silence, Mof spoke up again. "We need to call the police and let them know what's happening." Amina nodded, pulling out her phone. "I'll do it, but we have to be quick." She dialed the number and waited anxiously as it rang. Come on," she whispered under her breath, glancing around nervously. Finally, someone answered. 911, what's your emergency? Amina quickly explained the situation, her voice filled with urgency. We have evidence against a dangerous criminal named Benga, and he's after us. We need help. The operator listened attentively, taking down details. Stay where you are. We'll send officers to your location. After hanging up, Amina felt a surge of hope. Help is on the way. But just as she said that, a voice echoed from the path leading into the park. There they are. Amina's heart sank as she recognized the voices of Benga's men. Run, she shouted, and they scrambled to their feet, sprinting deeper into the park. Where do we go? Tola gasped, looking around frantically. There. Mof pointed to a small playground at the far end. We can hide there. They raced toward the playground, ducking behind a slide just as the men entered the park. Amina held her breath, praying they wouldn't be spotted. The men began searching the area, their voices growing closer. Split up. They can't have gone far, one of them ordered. Amina's heart raced as she crouched low, trying to stay hidden. Please don't let them find us, Tola whispered, her eyes wide with fear. As they waited, Amina couldn't help but feel a surge of determination. They would not let Benga win. They would fight for their lives and for justice. Suddenly, they heard sirens in the distance. Amina felt a glimmer of hope as the sounds grew louder. Look, Mof pointed to the entrance of the park. The police are here. The men outside began to scatter as the police cars pulled in. Amina felt a rush of relief as uniformed officers jumped out, weapons drawn. Over here, Amina shouted, waving her arms. The officers spotted them and rushed toward the playground, surrounding Amina, Tola, and Mof. Are you okay? One of the officers asked, scanning the area for threats. We're fine, but they're after us. Benga sent them. Amina replied, her voice trembling. Stay close. We'll handle this, the officer assured them. The sound of the sirens filled the air as more police arrived, and Amina watched as they began to pursue the men who had been hunting them. We're going to get you to safety, another officer said, guiding them toward a squad car. Amina felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had made it. They were safe. As they climbed into the car, Amina glanced back at the park. The officers were already apprehending the men, and she felt a sense of justice begin to take root. But her thoughts quickly returned to Benga. This wasn't over yet. Once inside the car, the officer turned to them. What's your name? Amina, she replied, her voice steady. We have evidence against Benga. We need to make sure he's arrested. We'll take care of it. You did the right thing by coming to us, the officer said, his expression serious. As the squad car pulled away, Amina took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and determination. They had faced danger, but they were still standing. And now, with the evidence in hand, they would bring Benga to justice. But Amina knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Benga wouldn't give up easily, and she had to be ready for whatever came next. We're going to finish this, she promised Mof and Tola, her voice filled with resolve. Together they would fight for justice, for Nana, and for their own safety. The battle was far from over, but they had each other, and that gave Amina the strength she needed to keep going.